Most people spend their entire working life building something that's going to disappear the moment they stop. They earn, they save, they retire, and then they watch it drain out of their accounts. Their kids will inherit nothing but a starting line. If you have spent any time in the military or in law enforcement, you already know what it means to plan beyond the moment that you're standing in. The same discipline applies here. Rental properties aren't a get-rich-quick scheme. They're a long-term asset strategy. And if you execute it right, what you're going to build is going to outlast you. And that's what I'm covering today. If this is your first time here, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this with all your friends. I put out practical real estate content built for people who want to take execution seriously. No hype, no shortcuts, just the work. I'm Bud Evans. I spent 35 years in the United States Air Force, 13 years as a police officer. I served as the mayor of Cinnaminson, New Jersey. I'm an active real estate investor focused on single family and small multifamily properties, and I mentor veterans in real estate, and I founded a low-cost investor-focused property management company in Southern New Jersey. So let's get into it. Here's where most investors start. They buy a property, the rent comes in, the mortgage gets paid, there's a little left over at the end of the month, and they feel like they have it all figured out. That feeling is the problem. What they have actually done is buy one asset in one market with one tenant, and they called it a strategy. That's not a strategy. That is a single point of failure dressed up as a plan. So here's what that looks like in real life. So an investor buys a single family rental in their hometown. The tenant pays on time for 2 years, and then they leave. The property is going to sit vacant for 3 or 4 months. The investor will burn everything that they've made and all their reserves, covering the mortgage out of pocket. They get a new tenant, but the roof needs a little bit of repair. Now they're negative on the year, and they're wondering whether or not real estate is actually a mistake. It was not a mistake. The execution was the mistake. So they treated one property like it was a finished portfolio, and it's not. It was a starting line that never really got built on. And this is really the baseline reality for a large percentage of first-time real estate investors. They acquire one asset, they absorb the early learning curve, and then they stall. And then they tell themselves that they'll buy another property when the timing is right. But guys, the timing is never going to be right. And 5 years later, they still have one property and no real progress towards anything else. And they're definitely not creating generational wealth. Now, here's where the problem deepens. Income does not create generational wealth on its own. Assets do. Hard, tangible assets. I have seen high earners, people pulling in 6 figures with government work or military pensions stacked on top of civilian salaries, retire with almost nothing to pass on because their income never got converted into assets that produce independently of their labor. The moment your paycheck stops, income-based wealth stops with it. That's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. See, assets are different. A paid down rental property still generates income even after you retire, after you're dead. That income doesn't care how old you are or whether you're still on the clock. It's going to produce whether you're working or you're not. That's the structural difference between income and assets. Most people never really make that conversion. The turning point here for most serious investors, it's simple. They stop thinking about the next deal and start thinking about what they're building towards. They stop asking about whether or not this property fits into the system that's going to produce income for the next 20 to 30 years. That shift in thinking will change everything for you. So let's break down how this actually works. There are 4 things that make rental real estate a generational wealth game, and each one works independently. When they work together, though, inside a growing portfolio, they compound your returns. The first mechanism is one that everybody thinks about, and that's the cash flow. Rental properties produce monthly income. That income is not tied to your time or your labor. You're not trading hours for it. You're not trading time for money anymore. The property earns while you're sleeping, while you're deployed, while you're retired. But here's where investors get it wrong. They spend the cash. They spend it early. They buy a property. It produces a couple $100, $500 a month after expenses, and then they fold that into their household budget. That's a mistake. It feels like a win, but it's really not. That few $100s just stopped working for you. It stopped helping you build a system. Cash flow in the early stages of building a portfolio should go toward reserves first and reinvestment second. You build a 3 to 6 month reserve per property, and then you use that additional cash flow to accelerate your next acquisition. That's how the system compounds. Spending the cash flow early is one of the most common mistakes that I see, and it really quietly kills portfolio growth even before it starts. The second mechanism here is appreciation. Real estate values increase over time. Everybody knows that, right? Not every year. Sometimes there's a downturn, and not in every market. But over a decade or longer, properties in a solid market are going to tend to appreciate. And that gain is not on the full value of the asset. It's not just on your down payment. That is leverage working in your favor. That gain is based on the value of the property, not just on your down payment. And that leverage is working in your favor. A property you purchased for $200,000 that appreciates to $260,000 over 10 years didn't just grow by 30%. If your down payment was $40,000, your actual return on capital deployed is 150%. That is how leverage amplifies appreciation. Let's talk about equity. It's going to build. It becomes a tool. You can pull it out and use it to acquire more assets. You can hold it and let it accumulate. You can pass it directly to your heirs. Equity is real and it's transferable wealth. Third mechanism is the loan paydown. This one is really the most underappreciated of the four. Every month, your tenant's rent payment covers your mortgage. Part of that payment reduces your principal balance. Slowly at first, more aggressively as the loan matures. Over 15 or 30 years, the loan disappears entirely. Now you own that asset free and clear. At that point, the monthly rent, it's no longer split between you and the bank. It all comes down to you. A property that was cash flowing $200 a month can cash flow $1,200 a month once the loan is gone. That's a significant income. Multiply that across a portfolio of several properties with mortgages that get paid off over time, and you're going to start to see what the income picture looks like for your family in 20 or 30 years. That's generational wealth in a nutshell. And oh, by the way, I haven't even talked about the increase in rents over those 20 years. The fourth mechanism here is tax advantages, and real estate investors will have access to tools that most regular wage earners do not. Depreciation allows you to reduce your taxable income even while the property is appreciating in value. Write-offs for expenses reduce your tax burden annually. A 1031 exchange, if you sell the property and roll the gain into a larger asset without paying capital gains tax at the time of the sale. If you need assistance on understanding how to get bonus depreciation, watch my video from last week. These tools will compound over decades. Every dollar that you keep through legal tax strategy is a dollar that stays in the portfolio and continues to work for you. Over a long enough time horizon, the difference between a disciplined real estate investor who uses these tools and one who ignores them, it's significant. We're not talking about tips. We're talking about structural advantages that the tax code explicitly provides for real estate investors. Remember, the tax code, guys, it's this much on how you pay, how much you're supposed to pay, and then it's this much on how to get out of paying this much. Let's talk about how this breaks down. A lot of investors understand the four mechanisms at a surface level. They've heard of cash flow and appreciation and some tax benefits, but understanding the tools is not the same as building the system here. And here's the pattern that I see most often with the people that I consult with. An investor buys 2 or 3 properties over several years. The portfolio starts to take shape. They have some cash flow, they have some equity, and then they stop. They stop because they feel like they've built something. And compared to where they started, they have, but compared to what's possible, they've barely scratched the surface. 2 or 3 properties with a mortgage is not a generational wealth machine. It's a beginning. It's a good start. The generational piece really doesn't happen until the portfolio has enough scale that the loan paydowns and the cash flow and the appreciation all work simultaneously across multiple assets. That takes time, and it takes continued acquisition. Remember, real estate is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Stopping too early is the single most common reason that real estate investors fail. And they fail to reach that long-term outcome that they were really aiming for. It's not bad deals. It's not market timing. You can't time the market anyway. It's stopping. The comeback looks like this. Stop thinking about individual properties and start thinking about a portfolio as a whole. You have an acquisition plan, not just a wish list. You know what your target looks like in terms of numbers of doors and total monthly cash flow and projected equity position in 10 or 20 years. You're not guessing. You're executing against a plan. And I'm going to tell you, your W-2 income, if you're looking at that, look at 3 to 4 times your W-2 income before you leave your job. That should be your goal. You reinvest your early cash flow here. You use equity strategically. You continue to acquire even when it feels uncomfortable because you understand that discomfort is a part of building something real. And you never ignore the back end. This is the piece that most investors never really address until it's too late. You can build a portfolio worth millions of dollars and have it fall apart across a generation if you don't plan for the transfer. Having a proper ownership structure matters. Holding properties inside an LLC or a trust can protect your assets from liability and simplify the transfer process. Estate planning is not optional if you actually want what you build to outlast you. Defined transfer strategy means that your heirs know what they're inheriting, how they're structured, and what their responsibilities are. I use Prime Corporate Services for that. There is a link in the description for that. I've seen estates where the investor built something significant and the family sold everything with 2 years of inheriting it because there was no plan to go forward. No structure, no education. The assets got liquidated, the proceeds got divided, and the generational wealth engine the investor spent 30 years building stopped the moment it was supposed to really accelerate. Don't let that be your story. Before we get into the checklist like we do every week, here's a quick note for all veterans in this audience. If you are serious about building something long-term and you want to do it alongside people who are operating at the same level, I want to point you towards the War Room with David Pere. It's a community built specifically for military investors. It is a resource, not a sales pitch. That is where real conversations happen. Accountability is real, and the people in the room have skin in the game. The link is in the description. If you're a first responder and you need direct one-on-one help mapping out a strategy specific to your situation, you can book a session at budevans.com. It's a one-off session. I don't sell any programs. Here is your execution checklist. Understand the difference between income and assets. Income stop, assets continue. Buy your first property with the intention of building beyond it. Don't spend your early cash flow. Build reserves first and then reinvest second. Track all 4 wealth mechanisms per property: cash flow, appreciation, loan paydown, and your tax advantages. Set a portfolio target. Knowing how many doors you want is great. You should also know what that goal is financially as far as passive income per month and what the timeline is. Next, continue acquiring after your first 2 or 3 properties. Stopping early is really the common failure point here. Then use your leverage intelligently. Your tenant covers your mortgage. Appreciate what that means over 15 to 30 years. It means your loan's paid off. Plan the transfers from day one. Ownership structure, estate planning, and heir education are not optional. They're mandatory. Don't let a portfolio you spent decades building be liquidated in 2 years because there's no plan on the back end. Generational wealth is not built fast. It's built deliberately. It's built across a timeline that extends past your own retirement and into the lives of the people who come after you. Most people think in months. Very few build for decades. But that's what this is. Be one of those few. If this was helpful to you, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share this with your friends if you have any. Thanks for watching. I'm Bud Evans. Aim high, execute fast. See you on the next one.